Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Sotah. We are up to Perek Hey, Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Ranbayev, Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Chana ben Miriam, Sison ben Raya, and Yoshua ben Shifra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdil ben Chaim Lechaim, with the Refuah Shelemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betoch Shah Chole Israel. The learning made by Rabbi Akiva in the previous Mishnah were taught on the day that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was appointed Nasi. Nasi was the title of the leader of the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, and after the destruction of the temple, the Academy of Yavne. When Rabban Gamliel was the Nasi of Yavne, he allowed only scholars of perfect character to enter. On the day that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah replaced Rabban Gamliel, he permitted entry to anyone who wanted to study. As a result of the great number of scholars, there was more discussion and debate, and many halachic questions were reached on that day. And this is how the Rav explains the beginning of the commentary of the Mishnah based on the Gemara Brachot, page 28a. Now the rest of this chapter cites other learnings that were made on that day. The next one concerns the laws of Tumah, a type of halachic impurity that attaches itself to people, utensils, and food. The Torah classifies certain people and animals as an ava tumah or source of tumah. Tumah is passed from an ava tumah to a person, utensil, food, or beverage that comes in contact with it, and these in turn have the ability to pass the tumah further. The tumah weakens, however, each time it is passed on. When an ava tumah, the source, transmits tumah to a person, utensil, food, or beverage, the latter becomes a rishon tumah, the first degree of received tumah. This level of tumah is too weak to transmit tumah to people utensils, and it can transmit tumah only to foods and beverages, which become sheni tumah, second degree of received tumah. And these terms are often shortened to av, rishon, and sheni. This Mishnah discusses whether it is possible for a sheni to transmit tumah to a food or beverage, making it a shlishi, a third degree of received tumah, or whether a sheni cannot transmit tumah at all, and there is no such thing as a shlishi. Bo bayom darash Rabbi Akiva, on that day, Rabbi Akiva taught the following. Now, whenever a Mishnah says Bo bayom, on that day, as in this chapter and the fourth chapter of Yadayim, it refers to the day of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's appointment, again, like the Rav explains based on the Gemara in Masechet Brachot on page 28a. The Torah states in Vayikra, chapter 11, verse 33, any earthenware vessel into which one of the 8 shratzim, the 8 shratzim are the slithering creatures named in Vayikra, chapter 11, verses 29 to 31, that transmit tumah when dead. Each of them is an av tumah, main source of tumah. So the Torah states, any earthenware vessel into which one of the 8 shratzim will fall, everything in the vessel will become tameh. This means that when a dead sheretz or any other av tumah enters the airspace of an earthenware vessel, even without touching its sides, it makes the vessel a rishon, and the vessel can then transmit tumah to any food or beverage inside it, making it a sheni. An earthenware vessel is different from other vessels. An av tumah cannot make any other type of vessel tameh except by touching it. However, an av tumah only has to enter the airspace of an earthenware vessel to make it tameh. No contact is necessary, and similarly, an earthenware vessel can transmit tumah to food inside it without contact. The verse does not say tameh, it is tameh. Rather, it says itma, it will become tameh, which can also be read as itameh, litameh acherim, which means to make other things tameh. Therefore, the verse can be interpreted as saying everything in the vessel shall make other things tameh. This teaches that a loaf of bread, for example, the Mishnah uses the example of a loaf of bread because bread would often be found in ovens which were made of earthenware in those times. So this teaches that a loaf of bread, for example, that became a sheni when inside the vessel can transmit tumah to other foods, making it a shlishi. So we see that even a food with the level of tumah as low as a sheni can make other foods tameh. Now the Mishnah links this learning made by Rabbi Akiva to something that was said by Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the teacher of Rabbi Akiva's teacher. Amar Rabbi Yoshua, upon hearing Rabbi Akiva's learning, Rabbi Yoshua ben Hanania said, Mi galeh afar me'enecha Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Who will remove, literally reveal, the dust from your eyes, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai? Meaning, if only the dust of the grape could be removed from your eyes and you would be alive to hear the teaching of Rabbi Akiva. Shaita Omer, for you used to say, Atid dor acher letaher kikar shlishi, in the future another generation will come and mistakenly rule that a loaf that is a shlishi is not tameh at all, but is tahor, she'en lo mikra min haTorah shu tameh, because there is no verse in the Torah teaching that it is tameh, meaning the Torah does not say anywhere that a shlishi exists. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was afraid that people will mistakenly think that there is no such thing as a shlishi, since the existence of a shlishi is not derived from a verse, rather it's based on a logical argument, a kal v'chomer, which someone in a later generation might disprove, as the Gemara discusses in Brachot, page 29a and b. But now, Akiva, your student, now Rabbi Akiva was a student of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, who himself was a student of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. Nevertheless, because of Rabbi Akiva's greatness, he was given the honor of being called Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai student, as the Rambam writes in his commentary. But now Akiva, your student, has presented a verse from the Torah that teaches that it is indeed tameh, shenemar, as it is stated, Kol asher betocho itma, everything in the vessel will become tameh, from which Rabbi Akiva derives that a shlishi exists, like the Mishnah explained. Now, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Akiva are not in complete agreement. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai holds that only sacred food, teruman kodashim, can become a shlishi, while Rabbi Akiva rules that this is true of any food. Nevertheless, since Rabbi Akiva has provided a biblical source for the existence of a shlishi, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai did not have to be afraid that people will mistakenly believe that nothing at all, even sacred food, can become a shlishi. And the Rav does tell us, nevertheless, the halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Then Sheni says shlishi bechurin ela bitruma, that Sheni cannot make a shlishi by all foods, only by teruma, like Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai held. And that is in the Mishnah Bet. Now the Mishnah Gimel cites another learning made by Rabbi Akiva the day that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became the Nasi. Eretz Yisrael was divided among all the tribes except the tribe of Levi. However, the Jewish people were commanded to give 48 cities to Leviim, as well as an open area around each city, as it says in Bamidbar, chapter 35, verses 1 through 8. The Mishnah discusses the width of this open area, the distance between its outer edge and the border of the city. Bo bayom darash Rabbi Akiva, and that day Rabbi Akiva taught, Umadotem michutz le'eret pe'at kedma alpaim ba'ama ve'gomer. The Torah states regarding the area around a Levi city, you shall measure from outside the city on the eastern side 2,000 amot, etc. This is in Bamidbar, chapter 35, verse 5. Now, there are various opinions about the length of an amah, ranging between 18.9 and 22.7 inches. So 2,000 amot is between 0.6 and 0.7 miles. But another verse says, the open spaces that you shall give to the Leviim from the wall of the city outward, 1,000 amot all around. That's verse 4 there. It is impossible to say that the open area measured 1,000 amot, like it says in verse 4, because it already says in verse 5 that it measured 2,000 amot. And it is impossible to say that the open area measured 2,000 amot, because it already stated that it measured 1,000 amot. Hakitzad. So how can this contradiction be resolved? The explanation is that the Leviim were given 1,000 amot for a green belt, a wide open area that was used not for building or farming, but only to beautify the city. And the measurement of 2,000 amot is the Shabbat boundary. The Torah teaches here that a person may not go more than 2,000 amot beyond the border of his city on Shabbat and Yom Tov. According to this explanation, the measurement of 2,000 amot is not specifically related to the Levi cities, rather it applies to all places in which people live. Since Rabbi Akiva derives this law from a biblical verse, he clearly holds that the law of Tchum Shabbat, the Shabbat boundary, is biblical, as the Gemara points out in Masechet Brachot, page 30b. A different way to resolve the contradiction between the verses, Rabbi Eliezer beno shel Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer, Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, says that both verses refer only to the Levi cities, and yet they do not contradict each other. Elef Amah Migrash, because the 1,000 amot mentioned in verse 4 is for a green belt, which we said was a wide open area that was used not for building or farming, but only to beautify the city. While the 2,000 amot mentioned in verse 5 includes an additional area, which is for the planting of fields and vineyards. Rabbi Eliezer, who does not infer the law of Tchum Shabbat from here, holds that law is only rabbinic and has no biblical source. There were 2 rings, back to the point of the Mishnah, where it says that 2,000 amot includes an additional area, which is for the planting of fields and vineyards. There were 2 rings surrounding the city, each having a width of 1,000 amot. The inner ring served to beautify the city, while the outer ring was for the Leviim to grow produce in. And the Rav does tell us, V'alacha Rabbi Eliezer beno shel Rabbi Yossi Aglili, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Aglili, shetchum alpaim amad rabbanan, that the Shabbat boundary of 2,000 amot is rabbinic and has no biblical source. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.